There are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen. And this was one of those weeks. Changes that haven't been seen for 100 years are underway, and we are driving those changes. So said Chinese President Xi Jinping to Russian President Vladimir Putin as they parted company after an historic 3-day summit in Moscow. And that's why we're here in Beijing, because we firmly believe that the world changed this week, that the tectonic plates in international relations shifted decisively. The United States is gunning for both Russia and China, if necessary, at the same time. A tall order, you might think, for a country that can't produce clean drinking water for many of its citizens. A tall order for a country where many of the banks are beginning to tumble and the others being saved by historic Herculean tasks, printing more and more dollars based on less and less material economic realities. A tall order for a country that had to slink out of Afghanistan like a thief in the night, beaten by men in sandals on bicycles, carrying Kalashnikovs strung across their shoulder. But there seems no end to the appetite for war in the United States. But the Republican and Democratic leadership in the US Congress are absolutely united in maintaining a visceral hostility towards two of their competitors, one of them which happens to own a very great deal of United States debt, and one of them happens to be the place where so many of the commodities necessary for the working of European and North American capitalism are to be found. And so President Xi Jinping's visit to Moscow, to Vladimir Putin, 3 whole days, their first meeting took 4.5 hours tete-a-tete, and it seems that the visit was an outstanding success. Certainly, if you judge it by the excitement it has created across the world, you would have to judge it a success. Now, some in the West will be surprised to hear me calling it exciting, but you have to know that we represent just 13% of the population of the world. This is a fact I never tire of making and pointing out, but have to, because so much of our worldview is fixed upon the fallacious idea that we are the world. You'll remember that charity single, "We Are the World," that they sang out in Britain and the United States, but we really are not. The United States is 4% of the population of the world. If you take the West as a whole, and only if you define places like Australia as being in the West, which is, of course, a defiance of geography itself, and only if you exclude the obvious fact that many, many millions of the people in the West are wholly against the conduct of their own political leaders. If you don't believe me, take a look at the footage from Paris. Oh, sorry, you can't, because the Western broadcasters are not showing the fact that if there had been cameras around in 1789, that's what the French Revolution would have looked like. Paying attention to the wave of strikes and demonstrations throughout the European continent, including in the United Kingdom itself. More people have been on strike for more days in the United Kingdom in the past 12 months than for the past 30 years.